First contact in the observatory. The radio telescope's steady hum was the only sound in the otherwise silent control room as Dr. Amara Patel adjusted her readings for the third time that night. The massive dish outside tracked across the star-filled Arizona sky, searching for patterns in the cosmic background radiation. After 15 years of scanning the heavens, Amara had learned to find comfort in these solitary night shifts at the Mountain View Observatory. Something about tonight felt different. The readings showed subtle anomalies, patterns that shouldn't exist in random space noise. Amara's dark eyes narrowed as she leaned closer to her monitor, her long black hair falling forward as she scrutinized the data. The signal was weak but unmistakably artificial, following a mathematical sequence that made her pulse quicken. "This can't be right," she muttered, fingers flying across her keyboard. The pattern repeated with perfect precision, prime numbers, but arranged in a way that suggested intelligence rather than natural phenomena. She was about to call her colleague in the main facility when the lights flickered. The hum of equipment died, plunging the control room into darkness. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow as Amara's monitors went black one by one. She reached for her phone, but it was dead too. The silence was absolute. Then came the sound, a high-pitched whine that seemed to bypass her ears and vibrate directly in her skull. The air itself appeared to ripple, and a soft blue light began to coalesce in the center of the room. Amara stood frozen, her scientific mind racing to explain what she was seeing as the light took shape. The being that emerged was nothing like the little green men of popular culture. Nearly 7 feet tall, it had iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Its form was vaguely humanoid but more fluid, as if its body couldn't quite decide on a final shape. Four eyes arranged in a diamond pattern regarded her with an intelligence that made her breath catch. Dr. Amara Patel, it spoke, its voice resonating in her mind rather than her ears. "I am Xylith, emergency envoy of the collective. Your work on quantum entanglement communication brought me here. We need your help." Amara's scientific training warred with her instinct to run. "How do you know my name?" "My work? We have been watching Earth for some time," Xylith replied, moving closer with an otherworldly grace. "Your recent papers on faster-than-light communication theory came remarkably close to understanding principles we have used for millennia. But more importantly, you demonstrated something rare among emerging species, the ability to question fundamental assumptions about reality itself." The alien's form rippled, and suddenly dozens of holographic displays filled the air around them, showing mathematical equations and diagrams that made Amara's eyes widen. She recognized some of the principles from her own research, but taken to levels she had never imagined possible. "This is incredible," she breathed, reaching out to touch one of the floating equations. Her hand passed through it, sending ripples through the projection. "But why do you need my help? Clearly, your technology is far beyond ours." Xylith's colors darkened slightly. "Because, Dr. Patel, there are things about the universe that even we don't understand. Something is coming, something that threatens both our civilizations. We detected it first, but our attempts to study it have failed. We believe your unique perspective might see what we cannot." As if to emphasize the point, another hologram appeared, showing what looked like a tear in the fabric of space itself. Dark energy poured from it like smoke, consuming everything it touched. This rift appeared 6 months ago in a system we had been studying. Within days, the entire system was gone. Not destroyed, simply ceased to exist. Our sensors can no longer detect that region of space. It's as if reality itself has been unwritten. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. "How long before it reaches Earth?" "At its current rate of expansion, approximately 8 months. But that's not the worst part." Xylith's form shimmered with anxiety. "It's accelerating." The implications hit Amara like a physical blow. Not just Earth, but potentially all of known space could be at risk. Her mind raced with questions, theories, possibilities. I'll need access to all your data, and we'll have to figure out how to communicate with my colleagues without causing panic. There is one more thing you should know, Xylith interrupted. We are not the only ones who have noticed Earth's potential. Others are coming, some to help, some to exploit, some simply to watch. Your world is about to become the center of something unprecedented, Dr. Patel. The question is, are you ready for what that means? Before Amara could respond, new alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Her equipment suddenly came back to life, screens filling with data she had never seen before. Above them, through the observatory's dome, the night sky had taken on a strange, shimmering quality. It would seem, Xylith said quietly, that we have less time than we thought. The change has already begun. The hidden truth. The Mountain View Observatory's parking lot filled with government vehicles within hours. Amara watched from her office window as men in dark suits established a perimeter around the facility. Xylith had shifted their form to appear more human-like, though their iridescent skin still caught the light in impossible ways. "They're earlier than expected," Xylith observed, their voice carrying a note of concern. "Your military's response time has improved significantly since our last observations." Amara turned from the window, her expression grim. "You've been preparing for this moment for a while, haven't you? This isn't just about the rift." The alien's form rippled slightly, their equivalent of a sigh. "You're perceptive, Dr. Patel." "Yes, we've been monitoring Earth's development closely. The rift is real, and it is a threat, but it's also an opportunity. Your species stands at a crucial turning point." Before Amara could press further, her office door burst open. Colonel Richard Hammond strode in, flanked by two armed soldiers. His weathered face showed no surprise at Xylith's alien appearance. Clearly, he had been briefed. "Dr. Patel," he nodded curtly. "I see our visitor is still with you. I'm Colonel Hammond, United States Space Force. We need to talk." The next few hours became a blur of debriefings and explanations. Hammond's team transformed the observatory's conference room into a makeshift command center, filling it with sophisticated monitoring equipment. Screens displayed satellite data, showing strange energy signatures appearing and disappearing around the globe. 7 more ships have entered the solar system, Hammond announced, pointing to a tactical display. 4 have taken up positions around Mars, 2 are in lunar orbit, and 1 is holding station just beyond Venus. All of them arrived within the last 12 hours. Xylith moved to study the display, their form casting prismatic reflections across the room. The collective isn't the only civilization that's noticed Earth's potential. Some are here to help, others. They paused, choosing their words carefully. Others have less altruistic intentions. Which are you? Hammond challenged, his hand unconsciously moving closer to his sidearm. We are guardians, Xylith replied simply. We watch, we wait, and when necessary, we intervene. Humanity has reached a critical juncture in its development. The choices you make in the next few months will determine not just Earth's fate, but potentially the fate of this entire sector of space. Amara had been quiet, her mind racing as she processed the implications. The rift isn't just consuming space, she said suddenly, causing both Hammond and Xylith to turn. It's consuming possibility itself, isn't it? That's why you need human help specifically. We still see options that your more advanced civilization might miss. Xylith's colors shifted to a deep blue. Precisely. The collective has existed for so long, achieved so much, that in some ways we've become limited. We see patterns based on millions of years of experience, but this threat doesn't follow any pattern we recognize. We need fresh perspectives, new ways of thinking. Hammond's tactical display suddenly lit up with new alerts. The alien ships were moving, realigning themselves in what appeared to be a defensive formation. Something's coming, he said tersely, reaching for his comm unit. The observatory's lights flickered again, but this time the power remained on. Through the windows, they could see a massive shape darkening the sky, a ship that dwarfed anything Xylith had shown them in their projections. The Nexus, Xylith whispered, their form becoming almost transparent with what Amara realized was fear. They weren't supposed to take an interest. Not yet. The air filled with a deep thrumming that made their teeth vibrate. Holographic displays appeared throughout the room, showing scenes from around the world as massive objects descended through the atmosphere. They weren't ships, Amara realized with growing horror. They were probes, each one larger than a skyscraper. "Colonel," one of Hammond's technicians called out, her voice shaking. "We're detecting energy buildups at each probe site. They're scanning everything. Deep-level scans, down to the quantum level." Xylith moved quickly to Amara's side. "The Nexus is what we feared might come. They don't explore or negotiate, they catalog and categorize. They reduce entire civilizations to data points in their grand analysis of the universe. And now they've decided that humanity is worth studying." "Studying?" Hammond demanded. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means," Xylith replied grimly, "that unless we act quickly, Earth will become their latest laboratory. The Nexus believes that understanding comes through deconstruction. They will take your world apart, piece by piece, analyzing every aspect of human civilization, human biology, human consciousness, and they won't put it back together again." Amara felt her blood run cold. "The rift. Did they cause it?" "No," Xylith's colors darkened further. "But they're interested in it." "Which means?" They stopped suddenly, their form becoming completely still. "We need to move. Now. Dr. Patel, remember those equations I showed you? They weren't just theory. They're the key to everything, including why the Nexus is really here." Before anyone could react, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The probes had begun their work, and the first reports of their effects were coming in. Cities going dark, electronic systems failing, and something else, something that made even Hammond's trained composure slip. "People are changing," he reported, reading from his tablet. "Whatever these scans are doing, they're affecting human physiology on a fundamental level. We need to evacuate, get to the bunkers." "No," Amara interrupted, surprising herself with her certainty. "That's exactly what they expect us to do. Run and hide, become subjects in their experiment." She turned to Xylith. "Show me those equations again. All of them. If the Nexus wants to study humanity, let's give them something worth studying." Rising stakes. The equations floated in the air between them, complex mathematical symbols twisting and transforming as Amara studied them. The observatory's makeshift command center had become eerily quiet, the only sound the steady beeping of monitoring equipment tracking the Nexus probe's activities around the globe. "These aren't just equations," Amara breathed, her eyes widening as understanding dawned. "They're keys to manipulating fundamental forces we haven't even discovered yet. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagine. It's stranger than we can imagine," Xylith finished, their iridescent form pulsing with approval. "But humans have a unique ability to push past the boundaries of imagination. That's why the Nexus fears you." Colonel Hammond looked up from his tactical displays. "Fears us? They're taking our world apart piece by piece. That doesn't look like fear to me. Doesn't it?" Xylith moved to the window, their form reflecting the golden sunrise. "Why do beings dissect things, Colonel?" "To understand them. To remove their mystery. To make them less frightening." The room shook as another probe passed overhead, its massive shadow briefly plunging them into darkness. The latest reports showed that nearly 30% of Earth's population had been affected by the quantum-level scans, experiencing everything from mild genetic alterations to complete conscious awakening to higher dimensions. "They're not just studying us," Amara said suddenly, pointing to a particular sequence in the floating equations. They're trying to prevent something. These variables, they describe a probability matrix. The Nexus isn't here because of what humanity is. They're here because of what we might become. The facility's power fluctuated again as a new wave of energy swept across the planet. Outside, the sky had taken on a peculiar crystalline quality, as if reality itself was being refracted through some vast cosmic prism. On Hammond's screens, the affected population percentage jumped to 45. The rift isn't a natural phenomenon, Amara continued, her voice growing stronger as the pieces fell into place. It's a byproduct. These equations, they're showing us that consciousness itself can affect the fundamental structure of space-time. The collective discovered this eons ago, didn't they, Xylith? That's why you've been watching us. Xylitha's colors shifted to a deep violet. We discovered it, yes. And it nearly destroyed us. Imagine a species gaining the ability to reshape reality through pure thought, but before they've developed the wisdom to use such power responsibly. The collective learned to suppress this ability, to lock it away behind layers of technological and psychological conditioning. But humans are different, Hammond said, beginning to understand. We're unpredictable. Untamed. You're dangerous, Xylith corrected. Gloriously, terrifyingly dangerous. Your species still dreams without limits, imagines without constraints. And now, thanks to the Nexus's own probes, those latent abilities are being awakened. The tactical displays erupted with new alerts. The probes were changing their behavior, their scans becoming more aggressive, more invasive. But something else was happening too. In cities across the globe, affected humans were beginning to exhibit impossible abilities. Reality rippled around them like heat waves off hot asphalt. The rift, Amara gasped, sudden realization hitting her. It's not just consuming space, it's what happens when too many possibilities try to exist at once. It's the universe's immune response to unconstrained consciousness. Xylith moved to the center of the room, their form expanding to create a three-dimensional map of local space. Now you understand why we needed you, Dr. Patel. The collective can't solve this because we've lost the ability to think beyond our self-imposed limits. The Nexus can't solve it because they can only destroy what they fear. But humanity. They were interrupted by a deafening crack as reality itself seemed to split open above the observatory. Through the tear, they could see other worlds, other possibilities, bleeding through into their own. The Nexus ship above them began to pulse with energy, preparing to take more drastic action. They'll destroy the Earth, Hammond said grimly, watching as his tactical displays showed more ships entering the system. Better to eliminate the threat than risk losing control. No, Amara stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the equations still floating in the air. There's another way. Xylith, you said the collective learned to suppress these abilities, to lock them away. But what if that was the wrong approach? What if instead of suppressing consciousness's effect on reality, we learned to guide it? The room's equipment sparked and sizzled as reality continued to unravel around them. Outside, the crystalline sky had begun to fracture, showing glimpses of other dimensions through the cracks. The affected population counter now reads 60% and climbing. It would be unprecedented, Xylith whispered, their form flickering with excitement and fear. To embrace the chaos rather than control it. To surf the wave instead of trying to stop it. That's what humanity does best, Amara smiled, reaching out to manipulate the floating equations. We adapt. We embrace change. And right now, we need to change faster than we ever have before. She began to rearrange the mathematical symbols, combining Xylitha's advanced theories with her own insights into quantum communication. As she worked, the air around her began to shimmer with possibility. The Nexus probe's scans had awakened something in humanity that couldn't be put back to sleep, but perhaps it could be taught to dance. Colonel, she turned to Hammond, her eyes now literally glowing with newly awakened power. I need you to get a message to every military and civilian installation still operating. Tell them to prepare for the most important lesson humanity has ever learned. Above them, the Nexus ship began its final approach, its weapon systems charging. They had minutes, perhaps seconds, before it decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. But in those moments, in the space between heartbeats, Amara Patel prepared to teach her species how to rewrite the rules of reality itself. The breaking point. Time seemed to stretch like taffy as Amara's consciousness expanded, each second becoming an eternity of possibility. The observatory's walls rippled like water as reality struggled to maintain its coherence. Through the fractured sky above, she could see the Nexus ship's weapon systems reaching full power, its intent clear: humanity would not be allowed to complete its transformation. "The message is out," Hammond reported, his voice seeming to echo from multiple timelines at once. "But we're losing communication networks faster than we can adapt them. The Nexus is systematically shutting down our infrastructure." Xylitha's form had become almost transparent, their essence spreading thin across probability space. "The changes are accelerating beyond even our projections. 80% of Earth's population is now exhibiting quantum awareness. The barrier between thought and reality is becoming dangerously thin." Amara could feel it herself, the intoxicating sensation of possibility flooding through her consciousness. Every thought threatened to become real, every imagined scenario trying to manifest. Around the globe, millions of newly awakened humans were experiencing the same thing, their unfettered minds threatening to tear reality apart at the seams. "We need to focus," she managed, forcing her thoughts into coherence. "The equations show us how to channel this energy, but we need a framework, a structure to contain it." She turned to Hammond. "Colonel, are you experiencing the changes?" He nodded grimly, his usually steady hands showing a slight tremor. "It's like trying to hold back a flood with a paper cup. Every soldier, every civilian, we're all feeling it. Some are handling it better than others." Through the quantum haze, they could see the effects of those who weren't handling it well. Cities warped and transformed as unconstrained imaginations ran wild. Skyscrapers twisted into impossible shapes, streets rearranged themselves like shuffling cards, and the very air sparked with manifested dreams and nightmares. "The Nexus was right to fear this," Xylith observed, their voice carrying undertones of awe and terror. "Unconstrained consciousness is like a virus in the operating system of reality. It rewrites everything it touches." The facility shook as another reality quake rippled through the area. Through the windows, they could see other versions of the observatory overlapping with their own, versions where different choices had been made, different paths taken. In one, the building had never been built. In another, it was a gleaming tower of advanced technology. "That's it," Amara breathed, watching the overlapping realities. "We're thinking about this wrong. We're trying to control it, to force it into a pattern we understand. But what if?" She reached out, her fingers trailing through the floating equations, rearranging them with newfound insight. "Dr. Patel," Hammond warned, checking his tactical displays. "Whatever you're planning, make it fast. The Nexus ship is beginning its final approach. Their weapon signature is like nothing we've ever seen." Amara barely heard him, her mind racing as she followed her revelation to its logical conclusion. "Xylith, you said the collective learned to suppress these abilities. The Nexus tries to destroy them. But what if the key isn't suppression or destruction? What if it's acceptance?" The alien's form pulsed with sudden understanding. "Integration rather than control. But the risks are already here," Amara finished. "Look around. Reality is breaking down because we're fighting it, because 8 billion human minds are trying to impose their will on the universe. But what if instead of fighting, we learn to flow?" Above them, the Nexus ship's weapon reached critical charge. They had moments left before it would unleash its reality-searing blast, attempting to cauterize what it saw as a wound in the fabric of existence. But in those moments, Amara Patel had glimpsed a truth that transcended both human and alien understanding. "Colonel," she turned to Hammond, her eyes now swirling with quantum possibilities, "I need you to send one final message. Tell everyone to stop fighting the changes. Tell them to embrace them, but with purpose, with intention. We need to ride this wave, not try to stop it. You're asking 8 billion people to let go of control at the exact moment they need it most," Hammond said incredulously. "That's exactly what we need to do," Xylith interrupted, their form beginning to stabilize as they grasped Amara's plan. The collective spent millennia learning to suppress this power. The Nexus spent eons trying to eliminate it. But humanity might be the first species capable of surfing chaos itself. The weapon fired. A lance of pure negation stabbed down from the Nexus ship, designed to reset local spacetime to a more stable configuration. But as it reached the atmosphere, something unprecedented happened. The beam split, fractured, and was absorbed into the quantum foam of human consciousness. Reality held its breath. In that moment of perfect tension, Amara broadcast her understanding to every awakened mind on Earth. Don't fight it. Don't control it. Dance with it. Let your consciousness expand, but guide it with purpose, with wisdom, with the uniquely human capacity to embrace paradox and possibility. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Billions of minds shifted from panic to purpose, from resistance to flow. The reality quakes didn't stop, they transformed. What had been chaotic destruction became creative evolution. The universe didn't break, it began to evolve. But the Nexus wasn't finished. As their first attempt failed, they began charging an even larger weapon. This one, they calculated, would not just reset local spacetime, it would eliminate Earth's entire light cone from the universe's timeline. "They're going to erase us," Hammond reported, his voice steady despite the impossibility they faced. "Not just kill us, make it so we never existed at all." Amara looked at Xylith, saw the same understanding in their shimmering form. "Then we have one chance," she said. "And it will take all of us, human, collective, and maybe even the Nexus itself, to survive what comes next." Unity's triumph. The Nexus weapon's charge reached critical levels, reality itself groaning under the weight of its power. Through her expanded consciousness, Amara could sense the fear driving their actions, not just fear of humanity's potential, but fear of change itself. After eons of categorizing and controlling the universe, they faced something they couldn't quantify. "Everyone's in position," Hammond reported, his military discipline holding even as his newly awakened consciousness expanded through probability space. "Every awakened human on Earth is linked into the network you created. Even those who were resistant are joining in now. They can sense what's coming." Xylitha's form had stabilized into something new, neither purely alien nor human, but a bridge between understanding. The collective is responding as well. For the first time in our history, we're allowing ourselves to remember what it was like before we learned to suppress our connection to quantum reality. Amara stood at the center of the observatory, her consciousness extending far beyond its walls. Through the fractured sky, she could see the multiple layers of reality overlapping, past, present, future, and possibility all bleeding together. The Nexus ship loomed above it all, its weapon preparing to erase humanity from existence itself. "We've been looking at this all wrong," she said, her voice carrying across multiple dimensions of spacetime. "The rift, the quantum awakening, even the Nexus's fear, they're all symptoms of a larger truth. The universe isn't just conscious, it's becoming more conscious. Evolution doesn't stop at biological life." Through their shared consciousness, she could feel humanity beginning to understand. The chaos of their awakening was transforming into something more refined, more purposeful. Instead of 8 billion minds fighting for control, they were becoming a symphony of consciousness, each individual note contributing to a greater harmony. "The Nexus weapon," Hammond warned, "firing in 30 seconds. Amara reached out, not with her hands but with her expanding awareness, touching the equations that still floated in the air. They were more than mathematics now, they were a language for describing the relationship between thought and reality, between consciousness and possibility. Xylith, she called, I need the collective. All of them. Not fighting, not controlling, but remembering. Remembering what it was like to dream without limits. The aliens' form pulsed with light as they broadcast to their people. Across the solar system, the collective ships began to glow with renewed purpose. Millennium of suppressed potential awakened, adding their harmony to humanity's growing symphony. 10 seconds, Hammond counted down. Amara closed her eyes, opening her mind fully to the quantum reality around them. Everyone, she broadcast to the unified consciousness of humanity, don't fight what's coming. Don't try to stop it. Instead, imagine. Imagine every possibility, every potential, every dream you've ever had. But more than that, imagine them together. The Nexus weapon fired. A beam of pure negation lanced down from their ship, designed to erase not just matter but possibility itself. But as it reached Earth's atmosphere, it encountered something unprecedented, a unified field of conscious intention, billions of minds working in perfect harmony. The beam didn't break or scatter this time. Instead, it was absorbed, integrated, transformed. The very thing the Nexus feared most, unconstrained consciousness, had become the key to survival. Humanity wasn't fighting the weapon, they were accepting it, understanding it, and in understanding, changing its very nature. Reality shimmered, shifted, and then stabilized into something new. The fractured sky healed, but not by returning to its original state. Instead, it became deeper, richer, more alive with possibility. The Nexus ship hung motionless above them, its weapons powered down, its vast intelligence encountering something it had never imagined possible. They're trying to communicate, Xylith announced, their form rippling with surprise. Not with words or data, they're opening their consciousness to us. Through their expanded awareness, Amara could sense the change in the Nexus. Their rigid categorization of reality was dissolving, replaced by something more fluid, more alive. They had come to erase a threat but found instead a new way of understanding existence itself. The rift that had started everything began to change as well. What had been a tear in reality became a window, a gateway to new possibilities. It wasn't consuming existence, it was transforming it, guided now by the combined consciousness of three civilizations learning to work in harmony. My God, Hammond breathed, watching as new data flooded his displays. The effects are spreading. Not just Earth, not just our solar system. The entire galaxy is waking up. Amara smiled, feeling the waves of change rippling out through space-time. Not waking up, Colonel. Growing up. The universe has been waiting for this moment, waiting for a species that could embrace chaos and order together, that could surf the wave of possibility without being consumed by it. Xylith moved to her side, their form now a beautiful blend of alien geometry and human fluidity. The collective spent eons trying to suppress this power. The Nexus tried to control it. But humanity. They paused, their colors shifting in what Amara now recognized as joy. Humanity learned to dance with it. Through the healed sky, they could see the other ships, Collective, Nexus, and new arrivals drawn by the unprecedented events unfolding around Earth. But there was no more fear, no more conflict. Instead, there was a sense of wonder, of potential, of countless civilizations ready to join in humanity's dance with reality itself. So what happens now? Hammond asked, his tactical displays showing a universe transforming in ways their old instruments could barely comprehend. Amara looked out at the new reality they had helped create, not a reality of rigid laws and suppressed consciousness, but one of infinite possibility guided by wisdom and shared understanding. Now, she said, we really begin to explore. Not just space, not just time, but the true final frontier, the endless possibility of conscious creation itself. The sun rose over the Mountain View Observatory, its light catching the quantum shimmer of the transformed atmosphere. In its rays, Amara could see not just one future, but infinite potential futures, all waiting to be danced into existence by a humanity that had learned to embrace its true nature as consciousness-given form, as dreamers who had learned to dream with purpose. And somewhere, in the vast dance of possibility, new rifts were opening, not tiers in reality, but doorways to whatever waited beyond the known universe. Humanity had not just survived its quantum awakening, it had shown the cosmos a new way to evolve. The adventure, Amara realized with a smile, was just beginning.